Ayubowan. News is our topic for today. ඉතින් හැමෝම දන්නවා මේ topic එක ප්‍රවෘත්ති, right? So ප්‍රවෘත්ති කියන මාතෘකාව ගැන තමයි අද අපි මේ lesson එකේ focus කරන්න යන්නේ. Practice question 1. News to me. How important is it to follow the news? Why? How often do you watch the news? Actually, I used to watch news. But now, I don't watch news because it's quite stressful. And I don't think it's really important to follow news in Sri Lanka because it makes you really stressed. And it's about killing each other. And I find that it's practically useless. Okay? ඉතින් මං සාමාන්‍යයෙන් නිවුස් බලන්නේ මෙහි right ඉස්සර නම් මම පොඩි කාලේ හැමදාම බැලුවා හැබැයි දැන් බලනකොට ඒක හරිම ස්ට්‍රෙස්ෆුල් කවුරු හරි මරනවා නැත්නම් මොන හරි වෙනවා right I feel international news or watching BBC or international news is better. Okay, do you believe everything in news? Why not? I wouldn't believe everything in news because sometimes it could be biased. So I wouldn't. ඉතින් හැමදේම අපි පිළිගන්න වද news වල පෙන්නන නැත්නම් ඇහෙන. Right? How have the habits of following the news changed in the last 20 years? What mostly caused this change? So I think people have actually stopped or the trend has deteriorated. Behala, dropped because people feel that news is biased, right? So in Sri Lanka, different channels have their own kind of biased news way of how to present news. So I feel that it has deteriorated or declined throughout the years. ඕගොල්ලන්ට හිතන දේ ඕගොල්ලන්ට කියන්න පුළුවන්, right? Which way is better to get the best news? Following the news accounts on social media or watching the news on TV? It depends. Social media bala news ගන්නත් පුළුවන්, TV එකේ news බල්ලා ගන්නත් පුළුවන්. ඒ දෙකෙන් මොකද්ද වඩාත්ම හොඳ? So you can discuss. Which news accounts do you follow on social media? ඉතින් ඕගොල්ලෝ follow කරන්නේ මොකද්ද කියන එක ඕගොල්ලන්ට කියන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්න ඕනේ. Which papers do you buy and which TV or radio channels do you watch or listen to news? Right? So I wouldn't kind of answer that, but ඕගොල්ලෝ මොන පත්තරද ගන්නෙ? මොන channels ද බලන්නේ? මොන radio channel එකද අහන්නේ කියන එක you have to bring out. Okay? And if the examiner asks you questions like this, answer freely. Okay? Do you think teenagers should read and follow the news about what is going on in the world regularly? Why? Now, I think they should because teenagers need to be what? They need to be updated about the information or things happening around the world. So I personally believe that they should watch international news and keep themselves up to date. ඉතින් මම හිතනවා teenagers ලා ඇත්තටම news බලන්න ඕනේ කියලා ලෝකෙ වෙන දේවල්, right? මොකද ඒගොල්ලෝගේ knowledge එක up to date කරගන්න වෙන දේවල් මොනවද ලෝකෙ මොනවද අලුත් trends ඒ හැම දෙයක් පිළිබඳව දැනගන්න මම හිතනවා ඒ news බලන එක හොඳයි කියලා. Right? What type of news do you prefer to follow? මොන වගේ news follow කරන එකටද ඕගොල්ලෝ prefer කරන්නේ, right? ඒ කියන්නේ radio එකෙන් අහලාද නැත්නම් international news ද local news මොන වගේ news ඕගොල්ලෝ follow කරන්න කැමති කොහොමද? type එක මොකක්ද? Do you react to the news on the internet? How? Do you write answers, comments or arguments? I never comment on anything, right? So I usually don't react to anything that is on the internet, right? So should the news be more entertaining? Why? What kind of news hits the headlines these days? I don't think news should be entertaining, but I think news should be informative. Now in Sri Lanka, hits, the headline hits are usually the ones that, you stabbed someone or you killed someone or you raped someone, which I think should not be like that. ඉතින් මම හිතන විදියට නම් ලංකාවේ හැමතිස්සෙම headline එකක් වෙන්නේ කවුරු හරි මරණ එකක් හරි මොකක් හරි ඒ වගේ එකක්, right? Whereas we should not do that. නිකන් අපි ඒක promote කරනවා වගේ. Because in New Zealand, I remember when all of these attacks happened, she didn't even, the Prime Minister didn't even name the person. She just said merely this person who did it. Okay, so the terrorist. නමවත් කියන්න කැමති උනේ නැහැ. So I think that is what we should also try to follow and make news more informative rather than bringing out unnecessary juicy information, right? Would you like to be a news reporter? No, I would never like to be a news reporter because it's quite challenging and risky. Is being a news reporter a hard job? Why? Why not? I think it's a hard job because you have to strike a balance between being honest and what you can actually give the audience. So I believe it's a hard job to do. Do you have a favorite news reporter? Not really. I don't have a favorite news reporter. If you do, who is it? Where does he or she report the news? ඉතින් ඕගොල්ලෝ කැමති news reporter කෙනෙක් ගැන ඕගොල්ලන්ට කතා කරන්න පුළුවන්. Right? Practice question 2. Responding to news. News වලට අපි respond කරනවා. Write a suitable response to suit the situations below. The first one is done for you, right? ඉතින් මේ එක එකට ගැලපෙන response එක ඕගොල්ලෝ හිතලා ලියන්න. පළවෙනි එක කරලා තියෙනවා. Have you heard that Donald Trump said he was the best president the US has ever seen? Yes, it really beggars belief, right? So, ahala තියෙනවා. Okay? Did you know that it wasn't until 1987 that Britain elected the first black female MP? No, I didn't. I can't believe it. තියෙනවා උත්තරයක්, right? According to the British tabloid newspaper The Sun, a large number of Muslims in the UK are sympathetic towards terrorists. What sensationalist reporting? Okay, so you can come up with answers. Oh, really? Oh, that's sad. You can come up with whatever you like as a response, which is appropriate. Have you read about the Black Lives Matter protests that have been happening every day for a week? It's great to see that people are fighting back. Oh, we need to fight back කරන එක හොඳයි. Did you know that the Earth's temperature in 2019 was around 0.95 Celsius degrees warmer than the 20th century average? That's just awful. Oh, okay. So here are some of the responses, or this is how you could respond to news. Oh, really? Oh, that's too bad. That's awful. I can't believe it. Is that so? You could come up with different responses, right? Now, moving on into the next one. Below are a number of headlines from 2020. How would you respond to these news? ඉතින් ඔයගොල්ලෝ හිතන්න කොහොමද මේ වගේ news headlines වලට respond කරන්න කියලා. Prince Harry announces he and Meghan will step back as senior members of the royal family. ඉතින් ඒක වෙලා ඉවරයි දැන් මේක 2020 වෙච්ච එකක්. Australia is struggling with massive and destructive bushfires. Right? Donald Trump tests positive for coronavirus, right? So he was COVID positive. Ukrainian plane crash in Tehran kills 176. Sultan of Oman dies aged 79. Kobe Bryant dies in a helicopter crash. 200 people injured in massive riots in India's capital. Cyclone Amphan devastates eastern India and Bangladesh. Russia announces state of emergency over massive oil spill. 100 arrests at Angolan protests. Nigeria's youth finds its voice with NSAS protest movement. Princess Diana told her medium to vote for Brexit. So මේ වගේ headlines වලට අපේ ලංකාවෙත් පත්තරවල් වල headlines නැත්නම් news bulletins වල headlines යනවා. ඒව ඇහෙනකොට කොහොමද ඔයගොල්ලෝ respond කරන්නේ? අයියෝ අපරාධේ අනේ පව් නේද? ඇත්තට මේ වගේ දේවල්ුත් වෙනවද? So same. Oh really? That's awful. That's really bad. Is it? Same way, right? But I thought I'll show you some phrases that you could use. දැන් අර ටික නැතුව ටිකක් එතනින් එහාට ගිහිල්ලා මොන වගේ phrases ද ඔයගොල්ලන්ට use කරන්න පුළුවන්. මොකද speaking IELTS වලට වගේම the whole point of it is for you to be able to use English in a native country. ඉංග්‍රීසි කතා කරන රටකට ගිහිල්ලා news bulletin එකක් කවුරු හරි කතා කරලා කියන්න බෑනේ, you should respond to it, right? So I thought I'll put up some phrases for you so that it will help you, right? And you can choose any of the phrases අරකට respond කරන්න, but I'll teach you the phrases. දැන් ඕගොල්ලෝ headline එක දන්නවා, තේරුම් ගන්න ලේසි එක. ඕගොල්ලෝ කැමති phrases දාලා ගෙදර practice කරන්න, right? I can't believe it. So surprise නැත්තම් shock පුදුම වෙලා වගේ තියෙන ඒවට. I can't believe it. අදහ ගන්න බෑ මට. I'm completely stunned. මන්න නිකන් කරකොල අතෑරියා වගේ. I'm really taken aback. මන්න නිකන් හිතා ගන්න බෑ වගේ. You're taken aback. You go a step back. හිතා ගන්න බෑ. It really beggars belief. This is almost exclusively used in British English. It has a negative connotation, right? So ගොඩක් අය මේක පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ එංගලන්තේ British English වල. I have no words කියන්න වචනක් නැහැ, right? So if you're surprised or if you're in a shock, right? Expressing that something is bad. Okay, it's awful. What a tragedy. අයියෝ මෙහෙමත් ඛේද වාචකයක්. That's terrible news. අන්තිමයි ඒක නම්. What a heartbreaking story. හදවත පලාගෙන යන news එකක්. Like, you know, when someone meets with an accident or, you know, you stab someone, someone's died. Okay? That kind of one. Expressing that something is bad, right? We did that. Expressing optimism about a bad situation. You think, නරකම වෙලාවකදීත්, right? ඒ නරක දෙයකෙත් ඒත් මිනිස්සු හරි positive. ඒ කියන්නේ අපිට දැන් petrol මොන හරි නැතුවත් අපි positive වෙලා ඉන්නවා. නෑ හිතේ. නෑ මේක නම් හොඳයි. කොහොම හරි මේක කරනවා, right? Positive feeling. Optimism කියන්නේ හොඳට positive වෙලා ඉන්න නරකම situation එකක positive වෙලා ඉන්නවා. Pessimistic කියන්නේ මොකුත් බෑ කරන්න බෑ negative feeling එකක් එන එක, right? ඒකේ opposite එක තමයි optimism. It's great to see that people are fighting back. නියමයි මිනිස්සු එකට සටන් කරන එක ගැන. The response from young people is really inspiring. තරුණ ජනතාව ඒකට දැක්කපු ප්‍රතිචාරය නම් නියමයි. I'm sure we will come to terms with this eventually. ටික කාලයක් යනකොට මේ ප්‍රශ්නෙට ඉබේම මිනිස්සු පුරුදු වෙයි. Next time we will be better prepared. ඊළඟ වාරයේදී අපි මීට වඩා හොඳට ලෑස්ති වෙනවා. Describing bad reporting නැත්නම් bad journalism. report එක හරි නෑ නැත්නම් ඒ කතාව හරි නැත්නම් කොහොමද අපි ඒකට reply කරන්නේ? That's absolutely nonsense. ඕක නම් පිස්සුවක්. I think that journalist is completely biased. මම නම් හිතන්නේ ඔය මිනිහා නම් ෂුවර් එකට ඒ පැත්තට තමයි අදින්නේ. Right? You shouldn't believe everything you read. කියවන හැමදේම විශ්වාස කරන්න එපා. They should really check their facts. ඔය දාන දේවල් හරියට බලලා ඕනේ දාන්න. what sensationalist reporting අයියෝ නිකන් හදවතට දැනෙන දේවල් නෙවෙයි report කරන්න ඕනේ. ඒ වගේම report කරලා තියෙන්නේ. Right? So there you go. Practice question 3. News sources. Right? ඉතින් news එන එක විදි තියෙනවා, පත්තර තියෙනවා, රූපවාහිනී තියෙනවා, ගුවන් විදුලිය තියෙනවා, internet එක තියෙනවා. So you have all of these things where you get news, and also from other people. Okay? Someone can call you and tell news. You can watch, you can listen from the radio, you can read from the newspaper, right? Or you can get information through the internet. So let's practice this. Seriously, Erica, does anyone actually read newspapers anymore? Yes, of course. If I'm going on a long train journey, for example, I usually buy a newspaper or a magazine to read. I prefer that to staring at a little screen for hours. I also enjoy doing the crossword. How about you, Matt? What do you think? I agree. I also enjoy buying a serious newspaper at weekends when I've got time to read all the sections, especially features about arts and travel. But you wouldn't buy a newspaper to find out the latest news, would you? I mean, it's out of date as soon as it's printed. I can get breaking news on my mobile devices 24 hours a day. Of course, it's quicker and more up-to-date on the internet or via a news app on your phone. But you get more detailed news reports in a newspaper. You also find serious articles written by well-informed journalists discussing politics, the environment, economics, technology, and so on. Serious articles in tabloid newspapers? They just run stories about celebrities with lots of photos. I wouldn't call that serious. Now, of course, I'm not talking about tabloids. I mean serious broadsheet newspapers. The ones that have a good coverage of important news and lots of features. Although the problem with some newspapers is that they are biased. I try not to read articles that have strong political bias, either to the right or to the left. I prefer articles that take a balanced view. So do I, but the news websites can be biased too. I also enjoy news reports from other countries. That would be my dream job, by the way, being a foreign correspondent based in somewhere exotic and warm. Well, I suppose I have to admit that I do pick up a newspaper from time to time, especially one of the free newspapers you get at the railway stations. I usually only have time to read the headlines though. It is සාමාන්‍යයෙන් England. This is like a foreign context, right? අපිට metro නැත්නම් tube එක train එක යනකොට පත්තර freely තියෙනවා. අපි පත්තරේ ගත්තා, කියෙව්වා, ඉවරුනහම මෙතන seat එකෙන් තියලා අපි බහැලා යනවා. sheet එකක් නෙවෙයි, seat එක. Where you sit is the seat. Okay? So seat එකෙන් තියලා අපි බහැලා යනවා. We read a lot. ඇත්තටම කියන්න ඕනේ පිටරට ඉන්නකොට හරියට කියවනවා. The problem here is ලංකාවේ අපිට කියවන්න බෑ බස් එකක හෝ train එකක because it's so crowded. Okay? So I also don't get time to read, but at every metro station or the train station abroad, you get the papers to read. I read the headlines too, but if I see a headline I'm interested in, I usually read the whole article carefully. Me too, but I guess my favorite features in newspapers are the film and music reviews. I read those every week to find out which films the critics are recommending and which music I should listen to. Okay, you've convinced me. So I'm off to Scotland tomorrow. Which newspaper should I buy to read on the train? I want one with lots of news, and it goes on. Right. So I want you to practice this. දැන් මේක සිංහලෙන් කියලා දෙන එක තේරුමක් නැහැ. සරල දේවල් ටිකක් තියෙන්නේ කතා බහක් day to day, right? හොඳට කටහරලා මේක practice කරන්න ගෙදරදී. The reason is එකක් තමයි intonation හැදෙනවා, pronunciation හැදෙනවා, right? So I want you to practice this on your own. Right. So moving on into the next question. Complete their dialogue about news. Right? තනියම gaps ටිකට එනේව ඔයගොල්ලෝ ලියන්න. ඊට පස්සේ මම පෙන්නන්න samples ටිකක්, right? Have you watched today's news on TV? It's about last night's blackout. Apparently, some people went looting because of the blackout. People decided to use the blackout to their advantage. The news reported that 4 stores were broken into. There's no evidence of who it was. You think? Blackout කියන්නේ light ගිහිල්ලා. තිත්ත කලවුරු වුණාම මිනිස්සු මොකද කරලා තියෙන්නේ? කඩවල් වලට පැනලා ඒවයි තියෙන බඩු අරගෙන ගිහිල්ලා ඉතින් සාක්ෂි මුකුත් නැහැ. Light නැති හින්දා කවුද කියලා බලා ගන්න බැරි හින්දා. Now here are some of the responses. දැන් අහනවා, have you watched today's news on TV? No, I haven't. What's going on? It's about last night's blackout. Oh yes, the lights were out all night. Apparently, some people went looting because of the blackout. What do you mean? People decided to use the blackout to their advantage. What? That's crazy. The news reported that 4 stores were broken into. Did the police find out who did this? There is no evidence of who it was. I hope this doesn't happen again. Or you can say, what a shame. Okay. Right. So with that, we move on into practice question 4. What do you believe? Read the following statements and decide whether you agree or disagree with them. Think about the reasons for your answers and discuss. එකගද නැද්ද? Reasons කියන්න. Now that we have the internet, there is no need for printed newspapers. Well, I don't completely agree with this view because I feel some people really want to have the tangible newspaper. Tangible කියන්නේ අල්ලන්න පුළුවන් එක. So people want to read, and when they travel, they would like to have the free newspaper and read it. And also old people don't like to use screens. So they want to be able to put their glasses on or spectacles on and read it. So I don't feel it would completely mean that you don't want printed newspapers, but a balance of both would do. News reports are always biased. I don't agree at all. We cannot say that all the news that is being reported is biased always. There are some channels, some reporters who are unbiased and who do actually report the relevant information as it is. So therefore, I cannot agree with this statement. අපිට කියන්න බැරි නිවුස් 100%ක්ම බයස් කියලා. හැමදාම නිවුස් එකක් මෙහෙම නැහැ. සමහරක් channel සමහරක් අය එහෙම වුණාට හැම කෙනාම එහෙම නැහැ, right? It is more comfortable to read a newspaper or a magazine than stare at the news on a little screen. I also believe that I don't like staring at screens. I prefer to read something on my way or, do a crossword puzzle. That's something that I really enjoy myself. So I actually do it. The crossword puzzles, I do it. Reading, of course, is a bit difficult when I travel or go somewhere with the kids, right? But, and also, if I sit down in the car, my husband is a very chatty person. So it's difficult to read. But the crossword puzzle, of course, I like doing it. Even with kids, I could quickly just get it done. So I enjoy it. Newspapers no longer have any influence over people's opinions. ඒක නම් වැරදිනේ. Newspapers වල දානේව සමහරක් වෙලාවට මිනිස්සුම influence කරනවා. ඒගොල්ලෝ හිතන පතන විදිය වෙනස් කරන්න තාම හැකියාව පත්තරවල් වලට තියෙනවා. The news is always negative. හැමතිස්සෙම දෙන්නේ negative news. ඉතින් ගොඩක් අය ලංකාවේ මේන්නේම නම් එහෙමයි, right? But ලෝකෙ තියෙන හැම එකක් මෙහෙමයි කියලා අපිට කියන්න බෑ. So negative නේ positive ඒවත් දෙනවා. මෙයා මේ පදක්කම දින්න මේව කරා. මෙහෙම වුණා. ලංකාවේ ආර්ථිකය දියුණු වුණා. නැත්තම් අපිට මොකක් හරි හොඳ දෙයක් වුණා. So negative හැමතිස්සෙම එන්නේ කියලා අපිට කියන්න අමාරුයි. So that is hard to believe, right? Practice question 5. News this week. Let's see what this news article is about. Read the news article below and give a summary of it. Athlete spends 500 days in underground cave. That's stunning, right? Athlete කෙනෙක් underground cave එක දවස් 500ක් ගෙවන එක nearly 365 days a year, so that's nearly 1.5 years roughly. Okay, හරියටම නෙවෙයි roughly. So, probably more than 1.5 years, right? An elite athlete has just emerged from spending a record-breaking 500 days alone in a cave in Spain. Beatrice Flemini, 50, is an extreme mountaineer. Extreme mountains හඳුනාගෙන කෙනෙක් තමයි යා. She participated in a scientific study to examine the effects of extreme isolation and deprivation on physical and mental health, right? Extreme කියන්නේ අන්තයටම ගිහිල්ලා, right? So she went through this study to see about the effects. එකකින් එන විපාක. Extremely isolate වෙලා උනොත් deprive වුණොත් දේවල් වලින් කොහොමද අපේ ශරීරය සහ මනස එකට ප්‍රතික්‍රියා කරන්න කියලා. She had to live in solitude in a cave 70 meters deep. ඉතින් කවුරුත් නැතුව cave එකක මීටර් 70ක් යට ඉන්න වුණා. She embarked on the solitary endeavour on the 20th of November 2021 and emerged from her Sabbatarian abode last Friday. Thing. දවස් 500කට යටට ගිහිල්ලා තනියම යා ජීවත් වුණා. After resurfacing, she was given health checkups by a doctor and psychologist. Rather than have a shower, she faced inquisitive reporters in a press conference in which she briefly explained her past 16 months. There you go, right? So, actually, ඇවිල්ලා ඩොක්ටර්ස් චෙක්අප් කරා, එයාගේ විස්තර බැලුවා, සයිකොලොජිස්ට් කෙනෙක් ආවා. ඉතින් ශව එකක් දානවා වෙනුවට රිපෝටර්ස්ලා ඔක්කොම ඇවිල්ලා එයාගේ ප්‍රශ්න අහන්න පටන් ගත්තා. Miss Flemini was beaming as she told journalists that time had flown by. She said she was surprised when scientists came to tell her the 500 days had ended. She had been constantly monitored by psychologists and cave experts but had no contact with anyone else. ඉතින් පුදුම උනාලු එයා දවස් 500 එච්චර ඉක්මනට ගෙවිලා ගියා කියලා. එයා මොනිටර් කරා දිගටම සයිකොලොජිස්ට්ලා cave expertsලා හැබැයි කිසිම කෙනෙක් එක්ක කතා කරේ නැහැ. She lost track of time and all perception of time after day 65. ඉතින් යාට දවස සහ ඒව පිළිබඳ තිබ්බ හැඟීම දැනීම දවස් 65කින් නැති වෙලා ගියා. Because it was always 4 in the morning. හැමතිස්සෙම උදේ 4 හින්දා. She explained her attitude saying the most important thing is being very consistent. I lived up to my commitment to living in a cave for 500 days. She put her success down to being able to get down on very well with myself. She did admit to having occasional cravings for roast chicken. ඉතින් එයා කිව්වා එයා determined commitment එකක් දැම්ම ඒකේ විදියට කරා. හැබැයි එයා ටිකක් පිළිගත්තා නිකන් ඉඳලා හිටලා හරි roast chicken කන්න ආසාවක් ආවා කියලා. Right? Now, what would you do if you spend 500 days in these places? එක්ක ගුහාවක නැත්තම් කවුරුත් නැති දූපතක, කැලෑවක, කාමරේ, ඇන්ටාර්ක්ටිකාවල, කාන්තාරයක. So how would you feel, right? I would of course feel really lonely, right? I would always miss my yummy food, right? It could be sometimes stressful and I would feel really isolated, right? I would feel deprived. So how would you feel if you were in these places and spent 500 days in each of these places, right? So, things for you to talk, right? Have a look at the topics, talk on your own, and then you can use the language that we have done. Okay, vocab lessons wala api language use karla tiyenawa, so you can definitely look into this as well, right? So with that, I think we come to the end, right? And we've had a look at some good questions, some good responses, right? And we've had a look at how you could respond to headlines. That brings us to the end of the 22nd lesson, news.